Minnesota, this is Christie Thompson with Christie Legal. I'm a divorce and custody mediator and paralegal in Minnesota, and I help folks divorce and handle custody cases with less conflict, less cost, and in less time. And I am coming to you today with a group of professionals who also help folks in the divorce process in the Northwest Metro. And if you guys could just do a quick 30-second intro, that would be awesome, in alphabetical order.
Well, I think
that would be me.
I was gonna say, is it last name?
Well, we'll go by. We're all kind of a lot of J's here. Got J's and L's. So I'm Jay Deworsky. I'm a financial advisor here in the Northwest Metro. I'm a third generation in my family to do that, and I also work with couples that are going through divorce, post-divorce, and the like. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Christie.
Hi, so I'm Jeff Scherber with Summit Mortgage, and I'm a mortgage advisor with Summit, and I help clients either purchase or refinance, and I also counsel clients through the divorce process and try to help them understand what they qualify for and what the ramifications are for what they do. Thanks.
And I am Josh Damberg. I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney with the law firm of Henningson and Snoxell in Maple Grove. What I do with individuals and couples at times is work through the estate planning process, meaning I help draft and execute wills, trusts, powers of attorney, and healthcare directives.
I am Lynn Chheang with Edina Realty. I am a residential realtor, helping people determine how their home sale can go through the divorce process, along with helping them purchase their next opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. In apparently not just the law, but in also real life, specificity would be good. Yeah, I should have said alphabetical order by first name. And then, yeah, that is fun that we have 3 J's here. So I really was making you guys think. So we all have our thinking caps on now. And so I help people, with the actual divorce legal process, and also with custody if you folks aren't married, but you're separating and you have a child. So just a little bit of information on that stuff. When you divorce, you need to divide the assets. And normally the assets are divided 50-50. There are some situations when differing from that is appropriate. But you take all the assets together, all the financial accounts, all the bank accounts, all the house or rental properties that you guys own as for earning money off of. I'm forgetting what the word is. And your jewelry and your household goods and your vehicles and boats and the whole 9 yards. And each of you should walk away with approximately half of the value of the assets. And you can do that any way you want to. Normally that does not mean dividing everything in half, each of them. And so don't sweat it. It'll become apparent pretty quickly how we can divide the assets. We just, ask and what's most important to you? And then we work from there. And then we also have to divide the debts. And the rule of law on that is that the debts are divided by ability to pay. Now, what ability to pay means in regular people words is how much do you earn? And how much do you earn compared to the other person? So to make it really simple, if one party earns 100,000 and another party earns 50,000, then the party who earns 100,000 is going to be taking twice as much of the debt as the other party will. And some people are not going to like to hear this, but it doesn't matter who incurred the debt. It doesn't matter, if one person went on a shopping spree like every weekend and there's like $30,000 credit card bills, or it doesn't matter if only one person went to college and there's $100,000 of student loans. Yes, you can be responsible partially for your partner's student loans if they were incurred during the marriage. So these are only marital debts we're dividing. So, if you earned your degree before the marriage and you have $200,000 of debts, that is not divided during the divorce. But if you got that $200,000 of student loans during the marriage, it is. So, and of course, you guys can agree to divide the debts differently if you would like to. And so that's the division of assets and debts. And spousal maintenance, usually there's not spousal maintenance anymore because, a really good percentage of women do work outside of the home full time. But if there is spousal maintenance involved, then there's no hard and fast rules for that. The rule of thumb is, if the person has a degree or, had a pretty good career before the marriage, then it's temporary spousal maintenance, 2 years to help that person get on his or her feet. And then if those conditions did not exist during or before the marriage, then the temporary spousal maintenance is half of the length of the marriage. And there aren't many circumstances where permanent spousal maintenance would be applicable. And those are things we would talk about. And then sharing the kids. We could have joint custody, which means each parent has the children half the time. Or we could have sole physical custody, which is actually a misnomer because nobody solely or only has the kids. But that's what we call it in Minnesota family law. So sole physical custody just means that one parent has the kids more often than the other. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. Maybe one of the parents works a lot. Maybe one of the parents works out of town 1 week a month. Maybe one of the parents, just doesn't have as much experience raising the kids, lots of reasons. And then 50-50, shared parenting, joint custody. You could do all sorts of various schedules, like the 2-2-3, 2 days with each parent, and then flip every other weekend. When the kids are older, some folks like to do 1 week on, 1 week off. There's a wide variety of parenting time schedules for both joint and sole physical custody. And we just talk about what's going to work with each of your professional and personal lives. And, regarding the children, we'll also need to decide things like who's going to cover the kids for insurance, probably the same person who is now. And if there's going to be child support involved and how much that is. And if you want to look ahead before you meet with a legal professional, there is a Minnesota Child Support Calculator online. So you can just Google Minnesota Child Support Calculator and plug in the necessary data, and it'll give you an idea of how much child support you'll be paying. And some of the things on there, you do need a little bit of knowledge to interpret what you should put in there. So that's why you talk to a legal professional. And so let's start, because there's a lot more to divorcing than just, the legal family court stuff. And so let's start with Lynn. And Lynn, please tell folks how you help them when they're divorcing.
Thank you, Christie. So the divorce process is, very delicate. I'm looking for guidance from a number of different parties. Everybody here on the call is a great team to be able to consult with, to definitely understand what routes we need to navigate through. And so when it comes to real estate, typically, we're determining whether any of the parties want to stay in the home. If a party wants to stay in the home, which one is it? Are they capable of taking on that debt? And then learning what the value of that property is, so we can make sure that that other party is paid out appropriately based off of the current equity within the home. If both parties are looking to move on, liquidate, then we move forward with the selling process. Just to give you a little insight on what's going on in the market right now, currently, it's been such low inventory, meaning right now, there's way more buyers looking for homes than there are homes available. And so you're finding yourself in multiple offer scenarios. The metric that's out there, it indicates that there's an average of 3.7 offers on every property. There's certain scenarios where you're learning a lot, different information where you're hearing 30, 40 offers on a property. So it depends on the bracket that you're looking in and you're selling in. And so, sellers right now are making great strides. And so for people who are divorcing, they're making some really good equity, and that allows them to then go and purchase their next property once everything's official. So typically we say, let's make sure we get that home sale done for you. And then when it's time to go purchase, ensure that all of the legal aspects are buttoned up, because you want to be able to purchase that home on your own and not have any marital interest in that property. So, people will say, well, hey, we've been separated. I'm ready to go. Let's get this taken care of. I want a space to live in. Sometimes that's not the best route. There's a lot of legal headaches with that, quick claim deeds and refinancing that needs to be done if you're putting the cart in front of the horse. And so, we're here to be compassionate about the situation. We want to hear exactly what the motivation is on, timing, the maximizing the sale, and providing you with the resources that are needed to get everything taken care of, so you guys are in a good financial situation, and just understanding how it can all work out from a timing standpoint.
Awesome. Thanks. And Lynn, what can you tell me about some things that your clients have been doing when the houses are selling for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 above the appraisal price? What have your clients been doing to get around that problem?
Sure. And I assume you're talking about being out there purchasing, correct? Okay. So, with any of my buyers, after we've gotten through the sale process, we're ensuring that we're having that buyer consultation, talking about what is going on in the current market. Where are we looking at as far as your desired region that you want to be in? What are typical bids over asking price? Is there a certain percentage that we need to be looking at to bid over? 10, 15% over an ask price isn't necessarily an odd thing in today's market. And when you put that into whole numbers, you're hearing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over. But we need to have strategies that actually allow you to be successful in that environment, right? Because appraisals are an issue. With certain lenders, like a group like Jeff's, they've been great with being able to have an appraisal panel that understands what the current market is creating for buyers, right? It's a true supply-demand scenario where it's not these inflated pricing just because you can get the amount. It's more of, hey, these buyers are willing to pay it. They're driving that price up, and the buyers are the ones who are determining value, right? It's very cut and dry. There's really no bubble that's in place, because if you look at just how big of a drop there was in 2008 and then how everything's trekking back up, there's just this curve that needs to be met, and it's right on track to be at the values that should be in place when you're looking at that standard 3 to 5% appreciation year over year since they've been keeping stats. So, again, being strategic with all the terms, it's not just a purchase price that gets you to win that property. There's covering your appraisal difference if there is an appraisal that comes in low. But then there's also considerations of, okay, well, how big of a down payment do you have coming in? And how does that make you look as a buyer? Does that give you a leg up? Are there appraisal waivers that could be put into place that allow you to, again, look better to the seller and give them more reassurance that they're going to get the true purchase price that had been offered? You have to consider the inspections, the earnest money, whether you're going to be doing something that's non-refundable. There's 12 different strategies that I have when I go through my consultations that are I guess, trade secrets in my world because it helps me beat out other buyer agents. And so I love to be able to share that with my clients, and it's a really good education session.
Okay, now everybody is intrigued. Good job, Lynn. So, Jeff, please tell us how you help folks who are going through divorce.
Well, what I do when people are going through a divorce, I like to have like an initial consultation. And what I like to do is really understand what their needs are, what their long-term goals are. And then I look at their overall financial picture to see how much debt they have. Because if you have a spouse leaving and they have a lot of equity in the home, but she's got a lot of debt that she's going to be dragging along, I like to put them in a good position. So basically they're debt free. Because then it just takes a lot of stress off the financial situation. And if you got kids and whatever, and they may be downsizing. So what we do is basically, then we'll analyze, does it make sense to buy right now? Or should we wait maybe a year until we get under our feet? So we really try to, what I like to do is really analyze and ask a lot of questions to really understand what their long-term need is and what their long-term goal is, because I just want to make sure they're in a good financial position to purchase the home if they decide to go that direction.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. And
You're welcome.
can you tell folks what should they be doing now to make it more likely that they are going to be able to get the, refinance the mortgage into their name only, or buy get a whole different mortgage and buy another house during divorce? What should they be doing now to get ready?
Well, they should have me, do initial consultation so I could pull a credit, because then they'll understand exactly where they're at. I've had situations where, individuals were going through a divorce and it was a nasty divorce and the one spouse decided to quit making payments. So all of a sudden that affects the other spouse. They originally came in and they had a 720 FICO and the other spouse decided to quit making payments. And then all of a sudden she doesn't buy for 90 days or 120 days and you re-pull credit. And now we're at 620, puts them in a whole new situation. So I try to let them know that, hey, make sure both of you are paying your mortgage payments, credit card payments, and everything on time. And that'll put you in a better position when you go to, purchase a home.
Yeah, and talking about making sure that you're current on the debts, that's actually a very good reason that as soon as you think that the relationship isn't going to work, and you've tried counseling and whatnot, that you start the divorce process as soon as possible, because the longer you drag it out, the more debt you guys are going to have. And then the harder it's going to be to move forward financially in an effective manner. So Jay, please tell us how you help folks understand the financial accounts they have and their financial picture when they're getting divorced.
Thank you. Yeah, I can do that. So when I meet people, sometimes I've had people come in before they're thinking about divorce and the other party. So that begs the question is that this is a very private conversation. And I have a lot of practice with that. I've worked with couples where they both know that I'm working with them, but I never share information back and forth what the other has, even if it's in jest, because that's really their private information. And Christie, as a divorce mediator, that this is, they're coming out of a relationship because they were damaged, and it's really to respect that privacy is just huge. And so I'm a financial advisor. Really what that means is I'm a fiduciary. I put the needs of my clients and prospects, if they're not a client yet, if they haven't invested in me, I put their needs ahead of mine. And that's really what that designation means. And I really put a lot into that, because I have like 10 sets of eyes looking on me whenever I do a transaction. They make sure that they check over my work, and I have to explain what that transaction actually means. And actually, Josh is by definition a fiduciary as well, correct? Yeah. So I'm very attuned into that. I grew up in this business, and we know that, you know, these relationships, people don't like to talk about other people. That's other people's business is their own darn business. And so the one thing that I do is I keep everything private, and I don't push on them. That's a big key, is because my transaction, retirement and savings isn't as immediate as Lynn and Jeff's. You know, these people, they need a place to live, right? Like tomorrow, next year. I have to be really understanding that, you know, I might be on the side burner, even though I'm giving them advice that's coming sooner than later. They know that. As long as that I give them the information, you know, they understand what we're trying to accomplish. And we always start with a financial blueprint, because that's going to drive where they're going. That's their roadmap. And sadly, a lot of financial people in the business don't do that, and it's driven by a product relationship. I'm not that way. I like to help my clients and educate them. I'm an educator by in my old life, I was a school teacher, so I'm very accustomed to that relationship of education, and that's how I help my clients.
Awesome, Jay. Thanks for saying that about how your previous career was as a teacher, and so you enjoy educating people. I was a teacher as well, and yeah, that's part of my job as well, is explaining the laws to people, and that's how they then make decisions on what they want to do. And so that's how we help you folks when you're in the divorce process. But, you know, even bad things have to come to an end. And so after the divorce, there's still more work to be done. I know you're like, really? Come on now. I was just through one of the worst things in my life. And you're telling me there's more. But there is. Because after the divorce, you're going to make yourself have a better life. And so there's a couple of parts of that. And Jeff and Jay, if you could please both talk about what people can do to make themselves more credit worthy in the future, because maybe their credit was bad, you know, too bad at this time to, you know, get a house, take over the mortgage, get a new mortgage, but they want to do that in the future. What should they do to improve their credit?
What I recommend for people to do is basically, you know, when I pull their credit, if they have a low FICO score, for some reason, let's say they've been going through the divorce process and it's been about 6 months, and now they've racked up 10, 20 grand in credit card debt. Well, obviously their FICO score has lowered because of the, you know, if they have a credit limit of 10,000, they owe 10,000 on their credit card, it damages their credit quite a bit. So what I try to do is let them know I could do what's called a rapid rescore and do a scenario for them and say, okay, here's where we need to be to get a mortgage. You're going to get the best mortgage rate if you're at about a 720 FICO. So I'll do what's called a rescore, and then I can analyze the situation and say, okay, if you pay this credit card down to $2,000, and you know, then we could do a rapid rescore and get you up to a 720. Now, if they have more serious situation where it's like credit, you know, collections and judgments and so forth, that there is a more serious situation. And there I work with a credit repair place called Heartland Credit, and they do an awesome job. And in many cases, you know, they'll help them and advise them, hey, and help them get rid of some of the collections, because what happens is if they try to actually do it on their own, you know, trying to call these collection places, it's just a nightmare, because, you know, they don't care, they don't call them back, where these people will be sending letters and getting the stuff deleted. And then once some of the stuff is deleted, then we end up doing a rescore, and then boom, now the credit's good, and then they're ready to go. So those are some of the, you know, So those are some of the things that I help my clients do that, are in a lower credit score situation.
So yeah, I guess Josh and I are kind of in the same kind of thing where we're long-term planners. And the way I do it, and you could probably ask Josh after me, is I back into to have the end in mind. And what that means is, people are shooting for the climbing a mountain, getting to the top and to their quote unquote, their retirement. But it's really one continuous journey. They got to get up and back down again. And that's the question. So if they know that what the end looks like, they're going to change their habits. This is taking on debt and such like that, and overspending is a habit. So you can't always like rationalize that. It's really, they have to really catch that. So if you educate them what the end goal is, and I had a client this week said, yeah, she told her boyfriend, the father of her child, said, hey, I don't want, at 80 years old, I don't want to be working. I want to be on a beach. And that's really the incentive, is that they want to know what they're going to do. So it's not like, oh, you need to have this, that, and the other thing to get there. They have to have the reason. And once you establish the reason, the retirement income stream, what that number is, they will change their habits every single time. If not, they're not working with me. Then they just throw their hands up. So I'd like to hear what Josh has to say about how you do it.
And I don't get super involved in a lot of debt and credit conversations because my pieces are more asset controlling. But in terms of trying to get people to take a long-term approach, the big thing with me is if I'm getting involved with a divorcing couple, I'm on one team or the other. So I typically don't come in, and because of my ethical obligations as an attorney, if I worked with a couple previous on an estate plan, I'm actually precluded from working with them as they go through a divorce because I can't pick favorites. So I can't pick one spouse over another. I actually have to encourage them both to go see counsel independently for developing an estate plan. So I actually, in that situation, have to say goodbye to both people. In the situation where one spouse comes to me as that recommendation, so I get to work with one of them, then I kind of get to help them hit the reset button and say, as you're divorcing, here's what happens to any existing estate planning documents that are in place. Kind of like Christie was talking about with the kids, how does guardianship language in an estate plan work as you go through a divorce and after a divorce? And also, once your assets are potentially split up, after you've completed the work with Christie and finalized the divorce, okay, now what can we do? How can we direct these? Or do we have certain things that our hands are tied? Can we not change a life insurance policy or alter certain assets that are designated to go to that ex-spouse? So there's a little bit of long play and short play in there that I get to walk through. But in terms of specific with debt, equity, or credit, those are things where I rely on other professionals like yourselves to help prepare and change.
So Josh, could you talk to us about why you would want to have a living trust versus a will? I just learned about this a couple weeks ago because, well, it's not my area of law.
Sure, absolutely. So there's a couple different things when you're thinking about an estate plan that is based upon either a will or a trust. And the considerations aren't focused a lot on divorce, but I'll just go super high level. I always have my clients think of it as a teeter-totter. So on one side of the teeter-totter, we have a will. On the other side, we have a trust. And on a will-based side, the idea is that there's a lower barrier to entry to estate planning. What I mean by that is it's cheaper. It's much more cost effective. And so you can develop a will-based estate plan that does things like select a personal representative, organize your assets and give out a plan for distribution when you're gone, and and that type of thing. The issue with the teeter-totter there is when you pass away, the costs are more expensive. So you go through a process called probate, and that's a public process, and it involves the Minnesota court system. So it's a little bit more lengthy, and your heirs pay for it when you're gone. If we flip sides and we go the other side of the teeter-totter, excuse me, a trust is a little bit more expensive at the onset. So you're paying more, but you're also saying, okay, because I'm paying more, I'm going to take it out of the Minnesota court system when I'm gone, meaning there is no probate when you pass away. So the administration post-death is less expensive. And you also don't have to wait for the rubber stamp of the Minnesota court of their approval. And that probate process that must be open a minimum of 4 months for creditors doesn't exist with a trust administration. So the idea is if you're a more private person, a trust is something that allows you to hold on to that privacy, allows your heirs to move forward in a much more efficient timeline, and you don't have to wait for anything. You're not submitting stuff to the courts. So that's kind of the teeter-totter. It's cost and effectiveness, and that's the teeter-totter that trusts and wills kind of face off on each other on.
Great. Thanks, Josh. And could, some people might be thinking that, a lot of people don't know how much it even costs to do this, right? So could you tell people like kind of ballpark for how much a will costs and kind of a ballpark for how much the living trust costs?
Sure, absolutely. So different law offices have different approaches. My office here at Henningson Snoxell, we try to be, I guess, in the world of the law, very, very transparent with our billing, because that's one of the biggest fears about working with attorneys is costs. So I bill all of my estate plans at an hourly rate. And the reason is so that you can kind of, just like working in other industries, see a line item, all my time, all my entries. So that's the first thing I'll say in regards to that. Meaning there's no set cost. I don't do a fixed fee where I say, I'm going to give you a will for X amount of dollars. But within that, I look back at my experience with various clients and I try to organize as we go through the initial parts of the process. And if I identify a single person that has a very basic will need, maybe has minor children, I can say, okay, between you and I would estimate that getting this process done as a single individual is going to fall in the realm of $800 to $1,000 with my hourly rate in mind. If we're looking at a trust for a single individual, because it becomes more complicated and like I said, it becomes more expensive, I nudge that up and I say, because of the a little bit more legwork and time that we have to spend designing this, it's going to be more like a $1,500 to $2,000. And of course, if I'm in a couple scenario, and I'll kind of leave it at the single individual, contemplating the fact that maybe this is post-divorce, but if we're working with a married group, each person in a married group or an intended married group is going to have their own trust, their own will, their own documents. So those costs obviously multiply, not necessarily by a factor of 2, but they do get more expensive when I'm working with a couple versus a single clientele.
Thanks, Josh. Because I do know that one thing that, like you said, everybody's worried about is cost. And so I did forget when I was talking to say that I charge $110 per hour, and that's for both parties. And the average cost for an attorney is $300 per hour per person. So that's $600 for both of them. So I save folks basically $500 an hour. Not everyone can use the alternative dispute resolution, but if you can, it's awesome saving $500 an hour. And so I am not seeing any questions in the chat box from anybody. Is there anything that anybody else would like to make sure that folks who are divorcing and separating know about how you help them?
Maybe we should all talk about how much our fees are. I guess I'll add in. I'm a non-fee based planner, so I'm a financial advisor. And depending on what assets they have, it's a percentage of those assets. It's usually 1%. And then if I help them with their insurance products, it's a commission-based type of deal. That's how I work.
And they don't pay the commission, correct? The insurance company does.
Correct. So that I get paid 2 different ways.
My fees are based just on if they do a transaction. Any consultations are basically free of charge. So you may come to me a number of times and I'm answering questions and giving you guidance, and you may not do something for a year, and that's okay. I'm here to help you out and help you understand what your situation is. And if it's a year down the road, you get a mortgage, and then basically that's how I'm paid, is once you decide to either refinance or get a new home.
Yeah, and I'm very similar, right? So I need to be able to succeed in a sale before I am paid out. So typically when we meet with sellers, that's where the commissions are discussed. Usually I'm about a 6% commission. 2.7 is provided to the buy side, so they can bring in a represented party who can actually perform and execute on the transaction. Sell side always collects more because of the advertising, the photography, and things that go in line with getting maximum exposure for that property. And so, I will also work within a sliding scale depending on how quickly we're able to perform on a listing. So I think that that's a unique element of how I work with my clients. And then for buyer representation, as I've indicated, when we go and meet with sellers, there's already allocation over to the buy side on fees. So as a buyer, essentially, it's almost baked into the purchase price because the seller is accounted for that cost. And there's usually just a broker admin fee, again, that is added to closing costs. It's $4.99. And there, again, nobody's making payment unless you can actually get them to successfully close on a property. So there's motivation to get things done right for you.
And I will say that, Christie, when you're speaking about lawyer fees, you nailed mine. My hourly rate is spot on, $300 per hour. There can be an absolute huge range, though. I know rural attorneys, that'll be closer to the $200 per hour number. It's rare to see an attorney go below 200, I would say. And then if you're marching, or I should say driving downtown these days, those numbers can be in the $500-600 per hour amount. So really you have a large spectrum that's based upon location, experience, and area of practice, and those all kind of factor into that hourly cost.
Great. Thanks, guys. And we all give free initial consultations, or I'm sorry, I need to say no cost initial consultations, because free is a bad word for certain folks who are on this Zoom meeting. And so all of our information is going to be in the post for this video presentation. And please contact us if you have any questions at all. That's why we are reaching out to you today. Have a great rest of this beautiful Minnesota day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Christie. Great job.
Thanks, everybody. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Good job, everyone.